What is up, guys? Frosty here today for another Frosty Features. On Friday, it was announced that we will be seeing Morgan Le Fay as Apocalypse's first horseman, the Horseman Pestilence. So Morgan Le Fay has been around for a long time. So at the end of the day, I've got a lot to say about Morgan Le Fay. So we're gonna jump right in. You're welcome for the rhyme. I know everybody. That's why we're here, baby. That's why we're here. All right. So Morgan Le Fay has been around for a very long time, but all that to say, she hasn't been as much as you would think she has been for as long as she's been around. So I've only I'm an avid comic book reader. So what I like to do here is I'm not going through kits and stuff like that. I'm just kind of giving, in the context of Marvel Strike Force, a background as to who Morgan Le Fay is. Like, who is this character that's coming in? Marvel Strike Force always gives a small little note in the blog, but it rarely does justice to the character at hand, right? And even to the point where I have an idea as to why Morgan Le Fay was picked as a horseman for Apocalypse. And yeah, so we're gonna talk about that. So let's get started on Morgan Le Fay. So Morgan Le Fay, number one, Morgan Le Fay is not just a Marvel character. Morgan Le Fay comes from the actual King Arthur stories of legend and stuff like that. So you can find Morgan Le Fay, Marvel, DC, other forms of mediums written about being a good guy, a bad guy, whatever. But at the end of the day, she's always Morgan Le Fay as a name for the most part. She doesn't have much as far as aliases and stuff go, like a lot of the other people go. She's also in Marvel canon, always showing off her boobs. So thank you, Morgan Le Fay. First appearance, Black Knight number 1 in 1955. So with this is the oldest character that I have brought up on Frosty Features, and so this is the first time I'm going to point this out. She gets the Atlas stamp. Oh, I will bring up Atlas in a minute. So in 1955, that's long enough ago that, thank you, Morgan Le Fay, thank you, Rolf. Back in 1955, Marvel wasn't Marvel yet, they were Atlas Comics. So Morgan Le Fay actually appeared in a Black Knight comic as Morgan Le Fay, but published by Atlas, not Marvel. So there will be an Atlas tag here in a bit. So her powers and abilities. So Morgan Le Fay, she spellcasting immortality and omnipresence, right? So omnipresence, so something as a god figure would has two main powers, omnipotence and omnipresence, right? Omnipresence means that she can be around kind of everywhere at once, right? So that's kind of her main bag, is the omnipresence. Outside of just her basic spell casting, she does. She essentially, think about Doctor Strange. If Doctor Strange was thousands of years old, that's Morgan Le Fay. She, however, isn't quite. I've heard a couple people make the argument that she is stronger than Doctor Strange. That isn't necessarily true. It's kind of, the proof's in the pudding there, because the way the Sorcerer Supreme is picked is the Eye of Agamotto will go between different powerful sorcerers and kind of assess them on whether or not they are worthy to become Sorcerer Supreme. And it considered Morgan Le Fay as a replacement for Doctor Strange, but ended up choosing Dr. Voodoo over Morgan Le Fay. It doesn't care about good or bad. There are evil Sorcerer Supremes. So anyway, she's very powerful, but be aware, she is an Avengers level threat. She's nothing to sleep on. So those are her powers and abilities. Immortal so it's called, people refer to it as virtual immortality. She just doesn't die, and if she dies, she doesn't die, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Great, there's my Atlas stamp. So before they were Marvel, they were Atlas, and this was their logo. I actually have one Atlas comic in my collection, which is kind of cool. It's Iron Jaw. But anyway, so yes, Atlas Comics. Alias, Sea Priestess. So she's a Sea Priestess. We'll go. So she's a Sea Priestess, kind of coming from her background. She spawns from some of the last people who lived in Atlantis. They broke off into smaller islands. So her father is an Atlantean. She's sort of an Atlantean. So she also has that Sea Priestess tag. Affiliations, Darkholders. So the Darkhold is an ancient tome of like all of the like more like eldritch spells, like really strong demonic powers that are all bound on an evil god bound into a single book. And so Morgan Le Fay has learned from most mystical texts in the Marvel Universe, but also this Darkhold. And she starts a cult called the Darkholders, right? So we have this Darkhold team coming. It's all based around this evil book, right? And I've got a feeling in the MCU we're going to see the Darkhold come up in reference with Wanda and the chaos magic situation. But anyway, so yes, she makes a cult called the Darkholders, based around this book, and the new team coming to Marvel Strike Force that she is the leader of is Darkhold. So that's what that is. It's an evil magic spell book that she kind of pulls from. Background: she is half fairy, Atlantean, Dark Dimension, and Weird World. She was banned to the Dark Dimension, and brought back. So in the Runaways canon, the show, she's in the Dark Dimension and manipulating things from there. And I threw Weird World in there. Fairies in Marvel Universe, fairies originate from Weird World. Weird World, it's a different dimension, right? So other Marvel characters from Weird World are like Toth in Strange Academy. Pretty much anyone that's fairy. She ends up becoming the queen of Weird World at one point. Anyways, I wanted to throw that in there. She exists on different planes at once, right? So a product of time. Morgan Le Fay exists in the multiple timelines at once, and she doesn't care for kids. Her trope in Marvel is that when she gets threatened, or if she gets threatened or somebody hurts her or something like that, her first reaction, and this is not a lie, it seems like her first reaction typically is to go back in the timeline, find that person as a kid, and kill them, right? So if you kill Morgan Le Fay, you kill her in that one point in time, but Morgan Le Fay equally exists in multiple points of time. So if you kill Morgan Le Fay, another Morgan Le Fay from a different point in time, and it could be seconds, it doesn't have to be years, it doesn't have to be thousands of years, she can literally replace herself and kill you or attack you back, right? So killing Morgan Le Fay really does nothing. So it's really important to keep that in mind when you're fighting a Morgan Le Fay. So I'm interested to see how that translates to Marvel Strike Force, because obviously that doesn't work that way. Probably plenty of revives. Cool. So yeah, moving on. So relationships. Dr. Doom, student/lover. This is where Dr. Doom gets most of his strong magical prowess, is with Dr. Doom. They became lovers, worked together a bunch. Dr. Doom ends up betraying her, and then she decides to go find Dr. Doom as a kid and kill him, and then she ends up deciding that it needs to be more personal than that. So she fights Dr. Doom in earnest so that he knew what he did. So yes, Dr. Doom's closely tied to Merlin. But also that means Dr. Doom level. So think about how strong Dr. Doom is. Morgan Le Fay, right? Teacher, student. Morgan Le Fay, Dr. Doom. Merlin, mentor. She is from the Arthurian times. I said that at the beginning. Even in Marvel canon, she's from that long ago. That's kind of where the Black Knight storyline goes. I bet you we see Black Knight in the near future. Little guess from me, but we're gonna see Black Knight here in the future. But she's from the Black Knight storyline. She's from way back when. Merlin captures her at some point. Yeah, so her and Merlin, pretty much anyone she has a good. So Bondrea said Merlin captures her at some point. Her and anybody that she ever has has a relationship with, it seems like they have a good relationship and then they have a bad relationship. So Merlin, Merlin, it like captures her. She learns everything from him. She's supposed to become his lover in exchange for him teaching her magic. So she learns the magic and then she says, F you dude, and then they become enemies. Her King Arthur is her half brother. A lot of her early storylines are her trying to dethrone King Arthur. Morgan Le Fay is a person that's bent on global domination, specifically of Earth. She is very powerful, and so this is an actual threat. So very often, if Morgan Le Fay decides to do that, it automatically calls for Avengers or even more teams to work together to fight her. So she is very, for those of you in the MCU that refer to a Thanos level threat, Morgan Le Fay is right there. She does have a daughter, Caroline Le Fay. who often will save her from being captured. That's the thing. One big thing with Morgan Le Fay is you don't kill her. You have to capture her. You have to subdue her and keep her, kind of keep her in a spot, right? So people ban her to the dark dimension, or they ban her to this thing, or they chain her down with mystical chains, or they seal her away, because once again, if you kill her, she exists on another timeline, and she'll do you in, right? So notable events. So this is why I think she was chosen. She has had a run-in with Apocalypse one time that I'm aware of. It could be more, but there's one major time where she ran into Apocalypse, and Apocalypse actually sort of looked at her as an equal. So also, for those of you who, so we're looking at a horseman now, right? Looking at the horseman, people being like, oh, well, a non-mutant can't be a horseman. Morgan Le Fay is not a mutant, right? But Morgan Le Fay is, in Apocalypse's eyes, she is on Apocalypse's level. So she has a competition with Apocalypse, right? So what happens is, I have this written down. Good stuff. So Apocalypse goes to Morgan Le Fay, and she at that time is the Queen of Camelot, and Apocalypse challenges her to use a champion, so that they have a battle of champions. He doesn't want to fight her, so throw that out there. Apocalypse does not want to fight Morgan Le Fay, so he challenges her to use a knight, more or less, to fight, and whoever wins, the person who's in charge of the lord of that night or whatever gets to choose who the next king of Avalon is. So Apocalypse puts forward Betsy Braddock, who is Psylocke, and Morgan Le Fay had earlier taken control of Brian Braddock, who is Captain Britain. So those are the knights. So Brian versus Betsy, Captain Britain versus Psylocke. And so they essentially force each other to fight, and Psylocke ends up killing Captain Britain. Psylocke also has the Captain Britain alias at that time, but anyway, so Psylocke ends up killing her sister, and then Apocalypse kind of takes that win, and then he declares Jamie Braddock, who is the older brother of Betsy and Brian, so he declares Jamie Braddock as King of Avalon, and Jamie's first act is to bring Brian back to life. So anyway, the one run-in we've had with them two was Apocalypse essentially looking at Morgan Le Fay as an equal or even a superior. He did not want to fight Morgan Le Fay. He offered competition, and he won. So really important point there. That's kind of a neat thing. So maybe that's where they decided that quick relationship is where, because after she lost, he also took her and experimented on her body. Right, because he won, she had to submit to him essentially. So he ended up taking Morgan Le Fay and doing experiments on her body, and maybe that's why we see Morgan Le Fay as a horseman now. If not, it's just a cool relation. Good stuff. All right, next. Capture Not Kill, Dark Avengers. So really good point. So I said this thing about the multiple timelines. There's been a lot of talk of Sentry lately. Everyone is speculating Sentry may be one of the Four Horsemen. He's been a Four Horseman in the past. And this is just to kind of further push the fact that you don't want to kill Morgan Le Fay. So Morgan Le Fay showed up to fight against Norman Osborn and the Dark Avengers. And as showing up to fight said Dark Avengers, Norman essentially told Sentry not to hold back. Sentry rushed her really fast and just ripped her head off. Right? Just decapitated her. And then all the Dark Avengers were like, oh, hey, good job. Job done. And then Sentry explodes. Right? He just dies into a million pieces or whatever. And Morgan Le Fay is standing right behind him. And she just came from a different timeline and killed him in one hit. Right? So even if you bum rush, because a lot of people, you're like, oh, just bum rush him, no problem. If you bum rush Morgan Le Fay, it means nothing, right? She can literally step out of a different dimension. She can put you in a different timeline, or often what she'll do is go back in time and kill you, right? Because after she disintegrates Sentry, she literally says, if you try to do that again, I'm going to find you as a kid and I'm going to kill you, right? Automatic response, Morgan Le Fay, right? So, at the end of the day, don't fuck with Morgan Le Fay, right? So, power level. The way we do power level on Frosty Features, multiversal means they are powerful enough to end existence as we know it in every universe, right? Universal, you can step between universes, you can end, essentially you could effectively end one reality at a time. Cosmic means global destruction. You could take out a planet or a few planets. Nuclear, you have the power to take out maybe a city, something strong like that. City level, we're looking at something like a Spider-Man, Daredevil type situation, maybe be able to take out a full brick wall. And Greg is the undead Asgardian that Hela spawns when she hits the field. Greg, on a really good day, under certain circumstances, I could probably take Greg. I'm putting Greg at like a just regular human level, even though it's an Asgardian. I know. But, so, in the case of Morgan Le Fay, she is a universal threat. She's kind of in between universal and multiversal. She's hell-bent on global domination, right? She's got a very specific goal, and she fails because of her specific goal. In the event that she wanted to end said universe or reality, she would have no trouble. She does, however, have to step in between different universes and stuff to make some of these things happen. So she's not a multiversal threat necessarily, because she doesn't just completely control all over multiple multiverses, or excuse me, she doesn't control over multiple universes at once. She focuses her efforts on kind of one spot at a time, right? And so I said earlier, she hasn't showed up as much as you think she would since being in coming around in 1955. She's actually only been in, I think, 73 issues of Marvel Comics, including the ones in Atlas. So, she is an extremely, extremely powerful sorceress. Absolutely going to be a game changer in Marvel Strike Force. She's the first horseman of Apocalypse. Do you think we're going to see other like powered individuals as the remaining 3 horsemen? Let me know in the comments. If I missed anything really cool or juicy, or if I just got something wrong, let me know down below. Hit that like button, subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. As a reminder, I stream on Twitch starting at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time on Sundays, so give me a follow at Twitch TV/FrostyOsty0232 and let me know how you're doing. Hang out and we can play some Marvel Strike Force together. Cool. Thank you all for hanging out and checking this out. Yeah, and stay cool.